big one. It's a whopper. I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to review a little bit. Since it is Monday and I am dragging, I need to review for myself. So if you have pencil, paper, whiteboards, markers, please take out all of your items that you need for math right now. We are going to do a little quick review. I'm going to put the chat in host only mode so that you can chat me the answers if you have them. All right, first thing I want you to do is in the chat right now, put, and it's host only, put prime numbers. Go ahead, type in a prime number only, prime number, prime, yes. 2 is prime, 7 is prime, 3 is prime. There you go, you got it. 13, 5, yes, I'm seeing lots of really good numbers. 29, 17, 11. Yes, you guys got the hang of that. Prime numbers are numbers that have exactly 2 factors, and that's it. All right. Yes, you guys have done a great job typing in those numbers. I appreciate that. All right, now we're going to switch gears. Okay, next question, of course, is give me a composite number less than 100. A composite number less than 100. There you go. 4, 6, yeah, most even numbers, yeah. All even numbers except for the number 2. Yep, all of those work. 15, there's an odd number, Give me another odd number that's composite. Give me another odd number that's composite other than 15. There you go, 27, 21, 25. There you go, there you go. That has a composite number, does have 3 or more factors. Any composite number has 3 or more factors. Very good. Vincent, 23 is not composite, it is prime because only 1 times 23 gives you 23. Yes, Nate, thank you very much. 99 is composite and an odd composite number. Thank you. All right. Now in the chat, let's see if you can do this. Give me the first 5 multiples of 2. First 5 multiples of 2. There, oh yeah, this take us another second. There you go. Okay. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yes, I see them all. Yeah, separate your numbers either with a space or a comma. That's helpful. Just the first 5 multiples are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Just to remind yourselves what multiples are. All right, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 are the first 5 multiples of 2. All right, give me the first 5 multiples of 3. First 5 multiples of 3, just to practice your multiplication facts of 3. There you go. I like that you list them all together on one line before you submit. That's helpful. There you go. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. If you don't know your multiples, you might want to check out Multiplication Rock. There are little videos about multiplication if you are still with multiplication. There's some little songs that can help you with your multiplication facts. I know it sounds silly, but boy, it really sticks when I learn things in a song. It really sticks. And that's how my daughter learned her multiples of 3. Think about that song when I hear the multiples of 3. So let's move on. I'm not going to sing it again because it is Monday and I don't feel like it. No. Let's do this one. Tell me all the factors of 6. Type in all the factors of 6. All the factors of 6. Very good. There you go. There are 4 factors of 6. Exactly 4 factors. Remember, factors are numbers you multiply together to equal 6. So there you go. I'm not going to say it because there's still some more answers coming in, but now you get the hang of it. Very good. Oh boy. Rosie, those are multiples. I don't want multiples. I want factors. And if you put factors in order from least to greatest, it's 1, 2, 3, and 6. So 1, 2, 3, and 6 are your 4 factors of 6. Yes, Christopher, you put a question mark, and that is correct. So 1, 2, 3, and 6, because 1 times 6 is 6, and then 2 times 3 is 6. There we go. Now we have a little bit of review. And that leads me back to prime factorization, using prime numbers, using prime factors, and using factor trees. Because today we're supposed to take it up a notch. We're going to use factor trees and prime factorization to actually find least common multiples of very large numbers. So let's look at a whiteboard here. Prime factorization. First, we're going to start with just prime factorization. Again, to review, give me the prime factorization of, give me the, I'm trying to think of one, two. Prime factorization of 30. Give me the prime factorization of 30. That means prime numbers only. All right, prime numbers only. If you need to use a factor tree to get to your final answer, but this is where you broke it down. What times what times what? And you cannot use the number 1 in a factor tree. Okay. Oh, yes, Bethany, you got it. There you go. Kendallin, you got it. Marina's, you need to break down the 6 further. Bryce, break down the 6 even further because you need prime numbers only. Yes, Drake. Yes, Isabella. Yes. Oh, I'm seeing lots of answers starting to really. All right, just to review, if you were not here last week when we did prime factorization, that is, you can use a factor tree and say what times what equals this number on top. 5 times 6 equals 30. 5 is prime, but 6 is not. So 6 is 2 times 3, and 2 and 3 are both prime. Prime factorization means you're only using prime numbers. So 2 times 3 times 5 is the prime factorization of 30. Mark, I think you did a typo there. Just double check your answer on that one. All right, so this is what prime factorization looks like. All right, it looks like prime numbers only, and you multiply it together to equal a larger composite number. Okay, this is by using a factor tree, and factor trees are something that we learn in 5th grade. In 6th grade, you might want to just break it down by saying, you know, what times what, and then keeping your prime number and breaking down the 6 times 3 times 2, something like this, and you'll still be correct. Either way you do it, it's going to be correct. Now we're actually, let me do a couple more prime factorizations just to make sure you got the hang of that one. That one seemed to give us a little bit of trouble last week before I move on to using prime factorization to find least common multiples. How about prime factorization of the number 50? Break down prime factorization of the number 50, please. I want the prime factorization of 50. Yes, Angie. Yes, Isabella. Yes, Bethany, Kendallin, Aubrey, Aaron. Good job. Liliana, I'm going to give an extra 30 seconds or so because I know some people take longer to think about their division and think about these numbers. Yes, Drake, Ashley, Raya, Angel. Yes. Xavier, Aubrey, Mark. Yes. Chloe. Yes. Yes, Rosie. Michael, you can still break down the 10 even further. Yes, Bella. Yes, Mason. Yes, Colin. Thank you very much. I appreciate all these answers that are coming in. Christopher, it's a little confusing how you've written it. If you could rewrite it one more time. I'm looking. Yes, Shunashi, Alexis, Victor. All right, there we go. Oops, Victor. There you go. I was going to say that was a typo. Yes, those of you who said 2 times 5 times 5, you would be absolutely correct. 2 times 5 is 10, and 10 times 5 is 50. So this is what I'm looking for, prime factorization, final answers, especially in the chat. You can leave it just like this. You will also see prime factorization written as 2 times 5, but since there are 2 5s, you may see it with an exponent as well. All right. All right, let's do, I'm just going to give you a couple more just to make sure. How about, 48. Give me the prime factorization of 48. I'll leave that one up there. Prime factorization of 48, please. Whew, yeah, there's a bunch. Good job, guys. Oh, Christopher, break down the 4 and break down the 6. Those are both composite numbers. You want prime numbers only. Emily, break down your 4 and break down your 6. Those are both composite and need to be turned into prime factors, please. Yes, Angie. Well done. Yes, I see lots of other numbers coming in really fast. Good job, Raya. I'm glad you know how to use that little up arrow appropriately for the exponent. That's cool. Uh-huh. Yes, very good. You guys are getting it. Shunashi, no, you wrote it correctly the other way, but this way is incorrect. So be cautious about, you must have missed something. Yes, I'm seeing lots of right answers coming in again. Raylene, those are only factors of 48. I don't want factors. I want the prime factorization, Raylene. So Raylene, when you want to break it down, you have to say what times what equals 48. And for me, 6 times 8 is 48. That's the one that pops in my mind. But 6 is still composite and 8 is still composite. 6 is 2 times 3 and 8 is 2 times 4. And then 4 is still composite. So you still have 2 and 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 2s here. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And there's 1 3 at the end there. So 2 to the 4th power times 3. Yes, Kai, you said it exactly how I would have written it. 2 to the 4th power times 3. So this is prime factorization and how you find it. You can use the factor tree, or if you know how to find it another way, just writing it out and taking out the prime numbers, then you are fine either way. All right, I'm going to share with you now a trick using prime factorization to find the least common multiple. Okay, remember last week we said we're going to abbreviate least common multiple, LCM. Least common multiple of, let's say, 18 and 12. I used fairly small numbers last time. I'm going to use a little bit bigger numbers this time just for this experiment here with the factor trees and prime factorization. No, you guys are giving me factors. This is incorrect. I'm not asking you for factors. I said multiples. Yeah, who can count by multiples of 18? Last week we listed multiples. Nope, every single one of you were wrong who, except for one person, Xavier. I saw the right answer there from Xavier. Stop putting in small numbers, okay? We're talking about multiples here. Multiples are multiplying. Remember I said count by multiples of 12, count by multiples of 18. That's much harder to do. So this week we are going to use prime factorization to find least common multiples, okay? All right, I'm going to stop the chat because I want you guys to stop putting in wrong information. I'm going to stop it right there. Okay. Multiples. Last week, like I said, last week, we counted by multiples of simple numbers like 2, 4, 6, 8 for multiples, or 5, 10, 15, 20. But not very many people know they're multiples of 18. All right, so we're going to break this down, and I'm going to share with you prime factorization of 18. I'm going to say 2 times 9 and 3 times 3. Okay, prime factorization of 18 is 2 times 3 times 3. All right, write that nice and big. Prime factorization of 12 is, let's see, 2 times 6 and then 6 is 2 times 3. So I have for prime factorization of 12, 2 times 2 times 3, okay? Now I've written the prime factorization for both. In order to find the least common multiple, I'm going to find what factors I can break down, and I'm going to use one of every factor that these guys have. So if I were to say, okay, my smallest number is obviously going to be 18. So I'm going to start with 18, 2 times 3 times 3, okay? So I have a 2 and I have a 2 from both numbers. I have a 3 and I have a 3 from both numbers. I have this 3, but I don't have this 2 yet. This 2 is still not used. So I'm going to use every factor that I have, and if it's duplicated on both sides, then I'm just going to use it once. However, the 2 from this side, it hasn't been used, so I'm going to bring it down so that on here I have 2 times 3 times 3. This is 18, but then 2 times 2 times 3 is over here. So 2 times 2 times 3 is still represented. So if I were to multiply all these together, this is 18. 18 times 2 is going to be 36. So the least common multiple of 18 and 12 is 36. Now we're going to do this a bunch today because there's a lot to it, and I want to make sure that we understand it. Okay, that was just the first run. Let's do a couple more. Least common multiple of 30 and 25. So step one, write prime factorization, and this time I'll turn the chat back on to host only. Write the prime factorization of 30, okay? Prime factorization of 30. And I think we did this one already, but again, prime factorization of 30. There you go, break it down. So there you go, now it's coming in. Prime factorization of 30. Okay, there you go. Yep, prime factorization of 30 is 2 times 3 times 5. Okay, prime factorization of 30, 2 times 3 times 5. Next step, write the prime factorization of 25. Prime factorization of 25. Yes, this one's a little bit quicker. Because there's only one possible answer here, 5 times 5. Okay. Yes, there you go. Good job. Now, in order to find the least common multiple of 30 and 25, you're going to use every prime number that's represented here. So I'm going to start by saying 2 times 3 times 5. All right. And there's a 5 that's already, 5 is listed twice here for 25. But since there's already a 5 here and a 5 here, that means there's only one 5 left that's unaccounted for. So I'm going to bring that one down for times 5 right here. Now you could look at this and say, here you go. Here's 2 times 3 times 5. That represents 30. Okay, let's put it this way, 30. And then if you say, I also have 5 times 5 up here, which is representative of the 25. But when you multiply all 4 of these prime numbers together, you do get 150 because 2 times 3 is 6. And then 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 25 is 150. There you go. Final answer, 150. So the least common multiples of 30 and 25 is going to be 150. All right. Yeah, good for you, Angie. Good for you, Danielle. All right, let's do some more. This is also helpful when you have perhaps 3 different numbers that you're trying to find the least common multiples of. Let's see. let's do another one that has 3 multiples, because last week you guys were listing out all these multiples of 3 digits. There we go. How about 15 and 6 and 10? Step 1, find the prime factorization of 15. Okay, type in the prime factorization of 15, please. Good, good, good. Good, 3 times 5. Okay. Type in the prime factorization of 6, please. Yep, you guys are ahead of me. There you go. 2 times 3. And tell me the prime factorization, please, of 10. Of course. 2 times 5. There you go. Now we're just going to make sure that all these numbers are represented, okay? All the numbers have to be represented. And you can go through and you can mark them off. Like I see a 2 and a 2, so I'm going to write a 2 over here. Okay, I see a 3 and a 3, so I'm going to mark off the 3s, but I have to put a 3 over here, so 3 is represented. And the next one, of course, is a 5 and a 5, so a 5 is now represented. And earlier, I think we did this one. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. Therefore, the least common multiple of all 3 of these numbers is 30. All right, and that's using the prime factorization method of finding your least common multiples. All right, I gotta say, if this way is a bit confusing for you, or you can always just go ahead and list the multiples, but you'd better know your multiplication facts really, really well, because it can get a little, you have a lot of opportunities to make mistakes if you're just listing your multiplication facts. So least common multiple, review, and exercise. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and give you another exercise to finding least common multiples. This is coming to you right now in Khan Academy. And this time I would recommend using this prime factorization method. All right, so this method is over. Wait, one more? Yes, absolutely, I can give you more. But for those of you who got it, you understand it, you're ready to move on. I posted an article, and the article is just going over the notes. And the notes are using the words, or vocabulary words for this week, like prime, composite, prime factorization, that sort of thing. So the article goes over the notes again. And yes, Ian, I'm happy to do another example with you. Excuse me. How about, all right, Ian, just for you, let's see. Yes, Kira, whichever method works for you, both methods work. So if listing it is great, or if you just know your multiplication facts really well and you're very thorough with those and you can see it, then that's wonderful. How about 36 and 12? And again, if you can see, if you know your multiplication facts really, really well, you might even be able to see that 12 goes into 36 3 times. Yeah, exactly. However, if you're just practicing this prime factorization method and you wanted to break it down, I would list the prime factors. So 6 times 6 is 36, or 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. And 12, the prime factors are what, 2 times 6, or 2 times 2 times 3. And then you just make sure that all the numbers are represented when you give me the common multiples. So multiples that they have in common. Here's a 2 and here's a 2 listed once. Here's a 2 and here's a 2 listed again. Here's a 3 and a 3. And there's one more 3 here. So there you go. And it just happens to be 2 times 2 times 3 times 3, which does equal 36. All right. Okay, let's see the article. And I did want factorization. All right. And because the Khan Academy assignment for least common multiple is super duper short, I am doing a prime factorization one more time. Again, they're both very short, but I think they're very necessary to practice. Yeah. Right. Okay. And yeah, we just want to make sure you're here for the whole thing so you get all the lessons, all the parts of it, especially if there's a quiz. So
it does make a difference. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. We are not going to be doing joinpd.com today. It'll be a brief lesson, and then we're going to discuss sort of moving beyond the basic structure. We're going to talk about the second strategy and talk about what that is, how it works, and then you are going to be doing some self-grading of your autobiographical essay. So it'll be an assignment that is due before Mr. Mullen starts his reading lesson at 10:20, but it's not intended to be anything brain busting. It's not trying to trip anybody up. I just want you to do some self-reflection on your autobiographical incident essay. So it's just a series of questions that you'll self-grade, and then we'll go ahead and take it from there. So let me go ahead and take a look at something here. So let's go ahead and get rid of myself because I don't want to see that. So again, we're sort of continuing with the autobiographical incident. So the review we'll go ahead and take care of right now, and I have no idea why it's doing that. Okay. There we go. So this was the topic that we established a couple weeks ago. Something embarrassing, profound, scary, inspiring, whatever. But whatever the event, whatever the emotion, it should have been an event that taught us something. So it has scenes or a setting, key people, characters, main events, which is the beginning, middle, and end. And then our life lesson is, of course, the theme. So throughout that whole lesson, what do we learn? So, of course, again, dialogue, the two purposes of dialogue: to move the story forward and to reveal character. Those are the only two. Now, we talked a little bit about moving beyond the basic structure. So what is the basic structure? The basic structure is, of course, the 5-paragraph essay format. So we have an introductory paragraph, we have the 3 body paragraphs, we have the 1 concluding paragraph. We know that every introductory paragraph should have a hook and a thesis statement, which is just a short statement that tells the reader what the story is about. And then the concluding paragraph, there's a series of strategies that we can use to sort of tie everything together, excuse me, and give it a sense of closure. So like I said, last week when we talked, strategy 1, when it says zoom to a narrow focus or a slowed down step-by-step replay of the central event. Well, what does that mean? Like I alluded to last week, so if you're going to do, well, my autobiographical incident is about a camping trip that my family took. Well, is it about the camping trip, or is it specifically about you getting chased by a bear when you got up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom, or being attacked by an owl, which I don't know what the statistics are on owl attacks, but I'd have to imagine that they're pretty scant. Anyway, so it's not, we want to zoom or narrow that focus to just one particular incident or central event. So that's the first strategy. So we're going to go back and take a look at the most deadly sponge, which is the one that I put together. So we'll take a look at that, and we'll circle back to the step-by-step replay, but then we're going to talk about strategy 2 today. So what is strategy 2? Well, refer intermittently, which means occasionally, to feelings and emotions associated with the subject of the writing. These references, which can be either direct or indirect, occur both within the writing and at the end of the piece. So what does this mean in plain, simple English? It just means that as you are writing, you are in the midst of this whole event, everything that's going on, you, in your narrator's voice, are telling the reader what you are experiencing in real time. So what I mean by this is a most deadly sponge, for instance. When I wrote that, it's sort of like, well, of course, the central event, or the event that I wanted to slow down, was catching a lava rock to the face. But as I'm describing that, both before, during, and after, I'm talking about how I felt and the emotions that I was experiencing during that time. So you'll notice that it says these references, which can be either direct or indirect, occur within the writing and at the end of the piece. So direct or indirect, what does that mean? Well, sometimes you can be as straightforward as saying, this is how I felt during this experience. I was embarrassed, I was scared, I was whatever. So you're spelling out exactly how you felt. That would be a direct or explicit way of saying something. Indirect is just sort of, it's a concept that we really haven't spent a lot of time talking about, but it's called show, don't tell. So rather than say, I was scared, don't just say that you were scared. What does scared look like? What does it sound like? Were you shrieking? Were you trembling? Were you trembling with fear? What was your, physically, what was happening to you? So when we talk about describing feelings or emotions in a piece of writing, there's really two ways to do that. There is direct, which means that you are telling the audience, this is how I felt and why I felt that way, or indirect, which is very close to show, don't tell, which is rather than telling the reader, hey, this is how I felt, you are showing the reader how you felt, which is, now there is a place for both, but more often than not, you want to err on the side of show, don't tell. So that's where we're at today. And that's the strategy that I want to look at real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of this. Excuse me. Okay, stop sharing for just a moment. Okay. All right. Sorry, I thought I had this up. There we go. All right, let's come back to, okay, here we are. So what I want to take a look at right now is sort of, I want to read this just for the feeling and the emotion. So let me come back to strategy 2 here. Refer intermittently to feelings and emotions associated with the subject of the writing. So obviously, this is a situation that took place in middle school. So we're just going to read it strictly for feelings and emotions and where those come in. So I'm going to highlight all of those feelings and emotions in purple. We'll say purple today. No, let's do something that contrasts more with the. We'll do like a little bit this light green here. Zombies were everywhere. They shuffled through the hallways of Hook Junior High, eyes vacant, lifeless arms dragging. But these zombies were different. They all danced in unison and only danced to Michael Jackson's Thriller. Little did I know that I would soon be a blood-soaked zombie myself. I had no reason to suspect my day would end badly. Okay, so we're sort of beginning right here. This is the feeling that I had. So actually, let me do it in here. So I had no reason to suspect that my day would end badly, especially considering that middle school wasn't as bad as I had been told. The rumors I heard about middle school all involved 7th graders constantly running for their lives. Once I arrived, I discovered that the tales of 7th graders being stuffed in trash cans or beaten up by lawless bands of 8th and 9th graders had been greatly exaggerated. My biggest obstacle the first few months of middle school was learning how to navigate a combination lock. But there was one class that made me nervous, 4th period. So essentially, like, this is really a feeling. It's not necessarily an emotion, but it's certainly like that entire paragraph is essentially a feeling about what's going on in that situation. Back in 1982, middle school was 7th, 8th, and 9th grades. Well, that's just a fact. That's not a feeling. Despite being a good reader, my counselor placed me in a reading class with 9th graders. Their clerical error was my personal disaster. Okay, so now I'm getting back into the feelings and emotions. Rather than being in a cool elective class, I found myself in a room full of 9th graders sounding out words, all the while fearing for my life. So that is very much feeling and emotion, straight fear, right? Middle school was not unlike prison. So here I'm sort of talking about what my impressions of middle school. I spent substantial swaths of time packed into rooms with people who did not want to be there. I avoided eye contact in the hallways, tried not to get stabbed in the shower after PE, right? I usually held my breath from 3rd to 4th period. As I approached my 4th period reading class, things changed. It was like being teleported to Victor Valley College. Like I said, once I entered a certain territory, I kept my head down and sunk into my desk as much as a 6'2", 7th grader could. So again, pretty much all, feelings or emotions. There's sort of the anxiety, there's the fear of going into this classroom. Most of the time I walked into a room of sullen-faced 9th graders who clearly had other things on their mind, but today was different. As I approached the room, I could hear laughing, shouting, the sounds of fun, not something you associated with a middle school classroom. I stood in the doorway and froze. It took me a minute to figure out the source of everyone's amusement. Along the back wall of the classroom, 2 boys were tossing an object that looked like a dark gray brain. They threw it between their legs, behind their backs, like Magic Johnson on a fast break. It looked like a sponge. The room was electric with fun. Spirits were high. This was my chance to become the lovable little 7th grader, the class mascot. Okay, so what we've got here, and this is really, for those of you who take your writing seriously and are interested in developing, this is a really, and not because it's it's just an interesting distinction to make here. So this is a sort of, this is a higher level observation here, but you'll notice that this paragraph here is sort of divided into a couple of different things. The first part is the narration. So there are some feelings, but most of it is I'm sort of narrating what's happening. So like if I come back here, like I'm narrating what's happening. Well, I don't need to come back there right now, but there is sort of physically what's happening in this particular situation, and then my feelings. So this is more of a feeling. So as I approach the room, I could hear laughing, shouting, the sound of fun, not something you associated with middle school classroom. That's sort of my evaluation of the situation. I stood in the doorway and froze. It took me a minute to figure out the source of everyone's amusement. Along the back wall, now I'm describing the scene. So there's really nothing here. I'm just describing what I'm seeing, what I'm looking like, even though there's some figurative language there. It's just, I'm describing what's going on. And then I would probably say, you know, you could make a case for this being a feeling or emotion. And I'll go ahead and add that. This was my chance to become the lovable little 7th grader, the class mascot, the cool kid who avoided after school beatdowns because he was a connected guy. Buzz off, jerk. Don't you know I'm friends with Winfred Richardson and John Spoggy? All of this was too much. I was just one act away from securing my status as the only cool 7th grader in a sea of nerds. So this would all be like feelings or emotions. So I'm not gonna go into the remaining part of the essay because I think you get the idea at this point. So I want you to spend some time with your essays, your autobiographical incident essays, to sort of evaluate it for this particular strategy. So again, we're taking a look at strategy number 2. And I'm going to go through the checklist of what you are going to grade your essay with, and then I'll take any questions that you have, and then I just want you to reflect on your essay. So refer intermittently to feelings and emotions associated with the subject of the writing. Okay, that's what I just spent some time going over and showing you. These references, which can either be direct or indirect, occur both within the writing and at the end of the piece. Okay, so the key phrase here are feelings and emotions. So when you think about, and unfortunately we haven't read as many novels at this point in the year as we would if we were together in the classroom. But if you take Wonder, for instance, Augie spends a good deal of time sort of talking about his feelings and emotions as he moves through different scenes and situations in the book. So that's what good writers do. And Wonder, I think we can all agree, most everybody I know really enjoys that book. But part of the reason that they enjoy that book, or any book for that matter, is because the main character really expresses his or her feelings and emotions. And so it's almost like you're reading someone's diary or journal. You're reading their innermost thoughts, and there's something about that honesty and sort of the rawness of it that attracts us as readers. Readers have really good BS detectors. So if you're reading something and it doesn't ring true, then people are they're going to find something else to read, or they're going to go someplace else. So the more honest you are with your material, that's sort of an intangible. But then beyond that, you need to have certain skills as a writer. So making sure that you use strong verbs, you're using concrete nouns to really describe a situation. So it's a little bit of everything. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go over the checklist that I'm going to, or the rubric that I'm going to provide you, and you are going to read over your essay and grade yourself. So part of the reason that I'm doing this is I've done it in the past, and typically you guys are harder on yourselves than I am, or your teachers would be, which is good. Like, to be honest with you, I want that. So what I really want to emphasize here is it's about the work. Like, nothing that we do or discuss, or it has nothing to do with you as a person. It's just simply the work. So if I'm giving you comments or suggestions or whatever on a piece of writing that you've done, it's not because I'm trying to make you feel bad or do anything other than make your quality of work better. So it's about the work. It's not about you as a person. So this is the form that you'll be filling out here in just a few minutes. So make sure you put your first name, last name, and then click your homeroom teacher. For some reason, I've got people who are half in and half out of these conversations. So the last quiz I gave, I had people putting my name and I wasn't their homeroom teacher. It was just, we were all over the place. So just make sure that you're taking the time to fill out the form properly, because it just helps. It helps me tremendously, and your homeroom teachers, where we can keep everything in one place. And then when we need that information, it's easy for us to find. So ultimately it's to help you. So first name, last name, homeroom teacher, title of your essay, make sure that you type that in there. And then you describe what you did physically when main event happened. Well, I'll change that. When the main event happened, even though technically that's correct, we'll change it. So you're telling me, like, you're narrating basically like what happened. So this thing where I was talking about moving between classes and all of that, like this right here, I stood in the doorway and froze. It took me a minute to figure out the source of everyone's amusement. Along the back wall of the classroom, 2 boys were tossing an object. So that is meant to be, all right, well, I need to show my audience where I'm at. And if I wanted to go back and spend some more time describing what was going on, or the physical layout of the classroom, I could do that. But I wouldn't want to spend too much time doing it because it would take away from the main event. But this question here, do you describe what's happening? So is it sort of step 1, step 2? Are you physically describing what's going on in the scene? You describe what the people around you are doing. So again, if I come back here, these guys are tossing this lava rock in the classroom. They're tossing it back and forth. They're going between their legs with it, behind their back. So that's, are you describing what the people around you were doing? And then it's 4-point scale. So 1, not at all. 2, a little bit. 3, mostly. 4, absolutely. You describe what you were thinking. I'm not going to refer back to the essay. I think there are plenty of examples of what I was thinking during that time. You describe how you feel. So are you describing or ideally showing how you feel, whether it's fear, it's excitement, whatever the case may be? Are you describing how you feel in your piece? Do you describe what you saw in the piece? So again, when I come back to the essay, these kids who were tossing things around, the kid holding the sponge shrugged and with perfect form threw it like a football, right? So that's me describing what I saw. And then the last question is, my essay features feelings and emotions that relate to the main event of the story. So this one, if you're doing all of these things here and you have even just a fundamental basic feel of the structure, which I know many of you do, this one is going to take care of itself. You'll be fine. So we've got a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to go ahead and call up that essay. So go ahead and go into your Google Drive and pull up your essay. And I know teachers have Go Guardian running, so they'll be able to see who's doing what. But I want you to spend some time, and I want you just to reread your essay. So I'm going to give you about, I'll give you 10 minutes to reread your essay, and then I will post this this form in Google Classroom, and then just go ahead and fill it out. Okay, and then that's it for today. But the main thing, if I had to summarize in one sentence what we're doing right now, it's just you want to make sure that you that there are feelings and emotions. You are describing your feelings and emotions in the autobiographical incident essay that you wrote. So the focus today is on feelings and emotions. Are you describing them? Are you showing what they look like? Are you telling the audience what they look like? But feelings and emotions that revolve around your main event. That's what we're looking for today. So I'll go ahead and put the instructions in the chat, and then we'll take it from there. But step one is to reread your autobiographical incident essay. And then I will post the self-grading rubric here in probably about 10 minutes. Okay, so step one, reread those essays. Okay, so if you have any, Vincent, yes, absolutely. That's more than okay. I appreciate you asking. You're always really good about that. Yeah, so step one, make sure, and the instructions are there in the chat. So number one, Aaron, I posted that. Literally, the answer to that question is right above what you're looking at. So make sure that you reread your essay, and then the form will be posted at 10 o'clock sharp. So reread your essay. Again, make sure you're looking for feelings and emotions throughout the piece. 5-paragraph minimum always, but if you had more than that, that's okay. But if you 5-paragraph is the minimum when we're writing essays. Okay, so cool. Any questions? Keep them coming, but we should be rereading our essays right now, and then that form will. Alexis, that's a great question. Alexis asked, Aaron, that's because I don't know, are you referring to your essay or are you referring to the form? Because I haven't posted the form yet. Yeah, that's because I haven't posted it, Aaron. I said I'm going to post it at 10 o'clock. So Alexis, we do not highlight the feelings, do we? You can if you want. The reason I went through and did that just for your benefit, just to help or show. If it were me, I would probably do that just to make sure that I'm on track. But I'm not going to require you to do that. I would just do it for my own benefit. Yeah, Jonathan, I don't have an issue with that at all. Like, because honestly, as long as you meet the deadline, you're fine. But pieces are never done. Like, as I was reading mine today, I'm like, oh man, I would make all kinds of changes. Are you allowed to edit if you see a mistake? If it's a quick fix, Lavisa, yes. If not, don't worry about it, because we're going to go back and revise. I just want us to look at feelings and emotions and to see if we're on track with that today. So ordinarily, I would say, yeah, definitely, but I don't want that to distract us from like the immediate task. So ordinarily, that would most definitely, but I want us just to focus on that right now. Okay. No, that's okay. If you have to unsubmit it to go back in to do that, that's fine, because we're going to be doing some revision on that anyway. So Jonathan, if it's requesting edit access, I don't know, you may not be in your school account. I don't know why it would do that. That's a little weird.
Unless I had a student ask the same question. Make sure you have unsubmitted it. If you already submitted it, you need to unsubmit it so that you can edit and make adjustments.
Yeah. So unsubmitting it is okay. You're fine. Like I said, we're going to revise that. So
no, it is not late, because we are telling, that's the assignment for today. So you are doing what you're supposed to do today, even though it says it's due late. That may have been for the original rough draft, but we are still editing, so it is not late.
Yep. Okay, so teaching is not unlike being a parent. You repeat yourself constantly. The form will be posted at 10 o'clock. So those of you who are looking for it, you're not going to see it for another 8 minutes. And yes, you want to unsubmit the assignment so you can access it. Yep, that's more than okay. No, Bella, don't worry about it. If you've already turned it in, like you're fine. So, and nobody's okay. Yeah, nobody has to do anything at this point. You literally just have to read it. I'm not expecting anybody to go in and revise right now. I just need you to go back in and reread it. That's really all I need you to do. So nobody's doing any revision at this point. You just need to go in and check your piece for the, yeah, that's fine, Bella, that's fine. But if it allows you to read it without unsubmitting it, yeah, I would just do that. But if you need to, that's fine. Okay. Yep, the form is posted. So those of you who have reread your essay and are ready to grade it, go ahead. You've got about 10 minutes, to do that, and then we'll go on break from 10:10 to 10:20, and then Mr. Mullen will pick it up at 10:20. Yep, Alexis, that form is posted.
You need to get back here. If you're laying down, you need to sit up and you need to get ready. It's time to read. First thing I'm going to do is share my screen with you. And it's a little bit crooked. Let me fix it. Story we're going to read this morning is called Betsy and Sal. And it's a story about a farmer, his family, especially his daughter, Emmy, and two Belgian workhorses. And these workhorses are different than most horses that we can usually think of. They are extremely large. They were built or raised, bred to pull large loads and big wagons. And so and to pull plows and stuff like that. So they're extremely muscular, extremely large. And this farmer, Pa, we're gonna know him as Pa, wants to sell the two horses and get a tractor. But then something happens and it changes his mind, okay? Now, before last week, we spent some time looking at, and Mr. Hartman spoke about it this morning as well, we've been looking at it both writing and reading in our English language class. We've been looking at it and talking about feelings and how feelings are often behind motivations. And so if we can track feelings in a narrative, oftentimes we'll come to a better grasp of what the conflict is and a better grasp of how satisfactory the resolution is. And so we're going to read Betsy and Sal, and we're going to talk more and more about feelings and motivations. Before we do that, we want to look at, and we're going to think of, I want to expose you to a few words that are going to appear and come across, and we will come across in our reading. The first word is preoccupied. Preoccupied. The word preoccupied move it down a little bit. The word preoccupied means to be, to have one's attention diverted or captured beforehand. So if I'm preoccupied when I'm reading when I'm reading a story, I may be reading it out loud, but my mind is thinking of something else. If you are preoccupied with something during the lesson, you may be looking at Mr. Mullen as he teaches, but your mind is someplace else. Your mind is occupied beforehand. Look for this word and pay attention to it when we come to it in the story. The next word that I want you to be aware of is the word efficient. Efficient. Efficient has to do with how good a job is being done. Efficient means that that for the time that is allowed, that no time was wasted, that no work or energy was wasted. When you are efficient at doing your homework, you get it done quickly and accurately. Efficient. Pay attention when this word comes to us in the story. The next word we want to look at is, it's a big word. I'm not going to tell you what it means yet, but I want you to pay attention to it and be aware of it. It is malnourished. Malnourished. The next word I want you to pay attention to as we read the story is retort. R-E-T-O-R-T. Retort. And again, we will look at this and figure out the meaning when it shows up in our story. Retort. Another word. And we will practice our substitution skills for vocabulary is gnarly. Gnarly. Pay attention to that when it comes up. And finally, the last word we're going to look at, and this one we will not stop for during the story, but is the word debt. D-E-B-T. The B is silent, debt. And it refers to something owed, either money or something else, maybe work. Debt, debt. Okay? Okay. At this point, I'm going to stop the share and for just a second, and then we're going to share the screen again, and we're going to go to the book. Read along with me as we read about Betsy and Sal. Now, what we're going to do at certain points through the story, we're going to stop. We're going to talk about Emmy or some other character, and we're going to track feelings, talk about feelings. So here we go. Betsy and Sal, written by Wanda Smith, illustrated by Karen Ritz. I tried to blot it out of my mind. Read along with me as we go. I tried to blot it out of my mind as I watched Pa hitch our two Belgian mirrors to the wagon for the last time. The weather is warm now, so I don't need my jacket, I thought. And at least I don't have to help Ma and Gladys pick lima beans in the garden. I tried to fill my head with meaningless thoughts so there wouldn't be any space left to dwell on what Pa was planning to do after he hauled the apples to the cider mill. How could he sell Betsy and Sal, their family? The thought of it brought an awful sinking sensation to my stomach. Of course, Pa was my favorite person in the whole world, but lately he'd become way too preoccupied by tractors. There's the word, preoccupied. And what is he preoccupied by? What is his mind filled with? The idea of getting a tractor. Okay? Now, on this very, very first page, this isn't page 2, but it's the first page. Can you sense a little bit of the conflict? Remember, narrative is built around a beginning, a middle, and end. And close to the beginning, if not in the beginning, we always find a goal and we always find a conflict, a struggle, a problem that needs to be overcome or resolved. Let's continue reading. Tractors could do this. Tractors could do that. I was sick and tired of hearing about who bought what kind of tractor or how much more efficient they were than horses. Remember the word efficient. How you're able to do things, do work in less time and at a better, higher quality. That's what it means to be efficient. I was sick and tired of hearing about who bought what kind of tractor or how much more efficient they were than horses. Ma didn't want them to sell Betsy and Sally either, which I know because they had an argument at the breakfast table. Paul said, Maddie, you should be grateful that Vogler will buy the team. It's 1937. Nobody wants a workhorse these days, and he's offering enough for a down payment on a tractor. I don't know, Sam, Ma said. Everyone says that Vogler overworks his animals and they look so malnourished. It seems wrong. Okay, here's our word, malnourished. Malnourished, okay? What does that word mean? Well, if we come to a word, a vocabulary word, a word within a text, and we don't know what it means, we read around it, right? I don't know, Sam, Ma said. Everyone says that Vogler overworks his animals and they look so malnourished. It just seems wrong. Okay? So what might malnourished mean? Well, if we look, one thing we can do, if you can't come up with a word that you can substitute in for it, that's good. Another strategy that we often use is we look at the word itself and we see this prefix at the beginning of the word, mal or mal. Then we also see this word, nourish, nourish. Where have we heard that part of the word before? Like nourishment, okay? What's nourishment? Nourishment is food that makes us strong, isn't it? So mal is a prefix that means badly nourished. So something that's malnourished would be something that's not well fed. I don't know, Sam, Ma said. Everyone says that Vogler overworks his animals and they look so malnourished. It just seems wrong. Paul stood up, knocking over his chair and said, don't interfere. He wasn't shouting, but his words had the quiet cold of ice. I don't tell you how to run the house and you don't tell me how to run the farm. Then he looked over at me. Now, what we want to do right now is we want to look at Paul's feelings. Okay? Because Paul's feelings have changed over the course of one page. What is happening? Paul is preoccupied. Paul is preoccupied by the thought of getting a tractor. Why? Because it makes a more efficient farm, okay? Less time to do the same work. Better results. So Paul how is he feeling at the first? And then how is he feeling at the end of this page right here? Okay, I want you to take your whiteboard right now. I want you to tell me how you think Paul is feeling. And I want us to go, and we're going to use this, again, our character feelings card. What we do when we use this card is we look at the category of feelings at the top. Happy, sad, angry, afraid. Which one of those four would Paul's feelings fall into? Probably right here, angry. What I want you to do is I want you to pick a word here because all these have different shades of meaning when it comes to the feeling angry. They all are in the same family as angry, but they all have different shades. So, which word would you pick if you were looking at Paul? And now what I want to see now is your word on your whiteboard. I want you to hold it up for me. I want to see what you're picking. Put it up there so I can see it. Exasperated. Good. That's a really, really good. Exasperated means Angry because you're so frustrated with other people. Annoyed. Annoyed is very, I think, is a good way of doing it. Remington, a good word that you might use. Annoyed may not be strong enough. People who are annoyed maybe don't jump up and kick their chair out of the way. People who are exasperated might. See, there's different shades of meaning. Nate, I want to see yours again. Would you put it up there for me one more time? Your whiteboard. Overwhelmed with bitterness. Okay. See, the thing is, you have to make a connection. Bitter. Danielle, I see that. You have to make a connection with the character and what they're feeling. Bruno, I need to see you react. I need to see you put something up. Let's go. Irritated. Thank you, Kendallin. Right. Indecisive. Okay. Or confused in a way. I ask a question about this, Kiara, and this is I like your word. I love your word, in fact, indecisive. But it sounds like to me, like Pa has made up his mind. He's kind of stubborn about it. Kazina, I like your word. Yes. Okay. Irritated. See, there's a whole bunch of different words that are right there, aren't they? I got to tell you this. Everybody who put up a word, you don't know how much I appreciate you, because you're in the top 10% right now. I bet you we only have 10% who are participating. And so listen to me. You guys are doing your work. I'm very proud of you. Kara, thank you. Kendallin, thank you. Kazina, thank you. You guys are doing a good job. Okay? All of these words have to do with angry, but every one of them give us a different feeling of what kind of anger it is. If I said he was enraged, that has a different kind of feeling than to say he was cranky. Mr. Mullen woke up cranky this morning, but he didn't kick over a chair, right? So anyways, that's something else. Let's go back to the story. Then he looked over at me. Come on, Emmy, he said, you can pick up the windfall when I'm loading the wagon. I didn't know what to do or how to feel. I could feel Ma's eyes burning a hole in my back as I trailed after Pa. I wanted her to know that I agreed with her about everything, and I didn't want Pa to sell our horses either, but I didn't dare utter a word against Pa right now. Pa and I didn't exchange words as we rode together in the wagon. I want you to think about that sentence right there. Pa and I did not exchange words as we rode together in a wagon. I don't know what was on his mind, but my thoughts were bouncing around like trapped cats. When we arrived at the orchard, he pointed to a tree and he said, see that apple tree over there, the northern spy? Sort the best apples. Your ma likes spies for pie. He chuckled. Hey, that rhymes. I must be a poet. Okay. Now, Paul and I didn't exchange words as we rode together in the wagon. Why do you think the author put that sentence in the story? What does it mean that Emmy and Paul didn't exchange words? Okay, get out your whiteboard and I want to see your answers. Why didn't they exchange words? Put it in a sentence as they rode together in a wagon. Listen, you can make a connection. You have an idea about this. Okay? Jaslyn says they have a hard time conversing. Okay? Hold it up when you get it done, please. Mark Samuel, do you have yours written out? Oh, I didn't think so. You're just sitting there. Leslie, can you pull it up there so I can see it? The moment, I can't read it, girl. The moment wasn't good for talk. Is what it looked like it said. Lavisa. I'm seeing some answers. Let's see. They didn't talk. That's right, Mike. But why didn't they talk? They weren't talking to each other because, Raya, hold it up there for a second. Because Emma didn't want to talk about horses, okay? They were quiet and didn't get along. Brooklyn, can you hold yours down just a little bit? Yours is, I can't read the top of it. She knew Paul was cranky and she knew she didn't want to sell the horses. There you go. I like that. That's a good answer. Paul was frustrated and didn't know what to, and Emmy didn't know what to feel about the horses. Okay. I like that, Kaya. They were both confused in a way. They were annoyed and they wanted to keep to themselves. Kara, I think that's a good analysis. They didn't exchange words because they were both mad. Kendallin, that's what I wonder too. Are they both mad or they just feel awkward with each other? See, we're talking about feelings, aren't we? If they talked, they may have staged an argument. Good. They didn't agree while they were on the trip. Absolutely. They're afraid of getting into an argument. It seems like to me too. So good job, you guys. Let's go back to the story. Picking apples. I worked without a second thought about what I was doing. I'd picked apples since I was a little kid. And now that I was almost 12, I could do it effortlessly. I tossed the gnarly ones. Okay, here we go. I tossed the gnarly ones into a crate for cider and gently set the pretty ones into a basket for mom. Okay, I want you to do a substitution for this word gnarly. Okay? Okay, there's a clue in the sentence. I tossed the gnarly ones into a crate for cider and gently set the pretty ones into a basket for mom. Okay, I want you to substitute a word for gnarly. Okay? Write it on your whiteboard and let me see it. I'm going to look at about 5 of your answers, so come, do it quick. Oh, the gross and mushy ones. That's what Priscilla says. That sounds good. Cool. Gnarly. You know what? Gnarly sometimes has a connotation of cool. We use it like that. But that's not what it means in this sentence. Ugly. Not so pretty. Right, Alyssa? The bad ones. The ones with bad parts or imperfections. Absolutely. I like it. Awesome. I don't think, I understand why because we use the word gnarly for awesome sometimes, but this time it means something else. I tossed the gnarly ones into the crate for cider and gently set the pretty ones into the basket for mom. So it's going to be opposite of pretty. Opposite of pretty. So ugly, right, sour, nasty, good job. Okay, good job. Let's go on. As I worked, I wondered why Paul still cared about collecting apples for Ma if he was so mad at her. It didn't add up. The wagon was filled. Paul smiled when he saw how I'd filled the basket and crate. If you look here, you can kind of get a clue too. I should have pointed this out. about what gnarly means. Here are the gnarly ones. Here are the pretty ones, you see. The wagon was filled. Paul smiled when he saw how I'd filled the basket and crate. Let's take these down to your ma, he said. I smiled back when I knew he expected me to, but I wasn't feeling very chipper. Chipper, that's a word that we looked at earlier. It's a feeling word. Feeling word. And it falls under the family of happy. As we neared the house, we could see Ma and my older sister Gladys in the garden. Two of my younger sisters, Claire and Jane, were playing on the swing that hung from the big elm tree behind the house. I wondered who was watching baby Rose. Paul pulled the horse to a halt in the tall grass alongside the garden. I jumped down and carried the pie apples over to the kitchen porch. Paul stayed on the wagon in complete silence, and Ma and Gladys watched him like hawks. Gladys dabbed the corner of her eyes with the hem of her apron. I guess we were all thinking the same thought. The next time we see poor Betsy and Sal, they'll be plodding through town ahead of a rickety old milk carts, lonely and sad with no one to love them. So, what is the family, except for Paul, what is the family feeling on this page? This is the last time we're going to do it, but I want you to write on your whiteboard, what is the feeling that the family is feeling? Not just Emmy this time, but the family. What are they feeling? I'm going to go to the character. Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they angry? Or are they afraid? I'll give you a clue. Yep, they're sad. So which one of these would you pick for your whiteboard? Hold it up for me to see. Let's go. Gloomy. Good job, Hector. Gloomy or glum. I like that, Angie. Both of those are good choices. Yeah, because they have the connotation or a feeling of being depressed. Gloomy. Good job, Danielle. Glum, everybody is coming up with the same ones. Bella, I can't read yours unless you put it closer, sweetie. Sorry. Hopeless. I like that too. Blue, disappointed. That's probably, blue would have been one I would have picked, I think, this time. Miserable. Good job. We all have the feeling down. Let's look at this. Ma stood with her arms folded across her belly, the way she always did when she was angry. Pa looked at her for a second and quiet said, I'm doing what's best for this family. Okay, we will look at this again tomorrow. This is a good stopping place for the story because what happens next is something that I want to talk about tomorrow. We have a vocabulary test on Thursday. Okay? It's going to be over vocabulary 5. You have access to the Quizlet program for vocabulary 5, but there are 3 words that have been left off. 2 of those words I intentionally left off because I want to see whether or not you know them from your cards. Okay, so they won't be put on. But you need to review your cards as well as the Quizlet for the test, okay? The test will be Thursday. It'll be really simple. They're not hard tests. They're easy if you study. Most people who study for them get 100 or 90%. That's a 4, Okay, so study, study, study. At this point, I'm going to give you a little bit of time that you can go on the Quizlet if you wish. There is no homework from Betsy and Sal this morning. There will be tomorrow, but not today. Okay, and so go ahead, and we have 10 minutes before we leave. Look at your vocabulary, review your vocabulary, use your slides, and use Quizlet to review them.